you've done a lot in the, infrastructure world, things that are really mission critical, and making changes to those sorts of initiatives. What are some, I know, again, like you could probably talk for hours on this one topic, but when people think about mission critical projects that everything depends on, what are some things that you've learned or mistakes people should watch out for?
Yeah. It's been really fascinating for me to get thrown into this, like now multiple of these types of programs or projects that I've had the opportunity to lead at Box. And I found it to be a fascinating learning experience, and also something that I think has a lot of carryover into just leadership in general. Uh, I think the number one most important thing before venturing off on any big investment is to have clarity of goal. And that requires work. I think we all tend to jump too quickly to feel like we're like, yeah, this is clearly a good direction, or like, oh, this is obviously a problem. We need to dive in and fix it. And not having, especially if it's going to be a large investment, especially if it's very critical, like, why is it critical? What exactly is the thing that we have to be able to deliver? And if we don't, we've failed. Having a very succinct, very clear, very easy to communicate way of speaking about that is table stakes for being able to accomplish anything else. So you have to start from that. You can't have two goals. You can have goals and a nice to have. You can have goals and constraints, or goal and constraints, but you have to have sort of one clear outcome that you are aligned on, that whoever asked you to do this project is aligned on, and that you can align the team that's going to be working on it around it. And then I think the second part is, usually if it's high stakes in some way, there's some unknowns that are associated with it. Like if we had a perfect view of exactly what we need to do and exactly how to do it and exactly the timeline, then it wouldn't be that high stakes, right? If there's something where it's like we have to figure something out on a timeline, or we have to figure something out that's not clear how to figure out, there's always some sort of element of risk or uncertainty that I think can be uncomfortable. But I have grown to find it fascinating, because I think it makes you realize that anything we set off to do has a lot of risk and uncertainty associated with it. So sometimes when you're forced to sort of work on the very amplified version of it, it gives you some good takeaways for just sort of more normal ways of leadership. But if you're looking at some path that seems very fraught that you're stressed about, I think actually doing the work of unpacking what that risk is, what concretely, like what could go wrong, what are you worried about, and then figuring out an incremental way of de-risking that risk. Like, risk is always going to happen. There's no such thing as setting off to do something important that doesn't have risk, right? That's just, if it wasn't risky, it's not, it's, if there's no risk, it's not important. That can't go together. And so just having risk should not be a sign that something is wrong. Quite the contrary. It's like, okay, we're doing something important. We have work to figure out. But then for every one of those risks that we're calling out, what are we doing about them? How can we de-risk them? Can we run an experiment? Can we build a prototype? Can we validate with a customer? Can we do an incremental deployment to test on a small sliver of traffic? You know, the mechanism of de-risking is very, very context specific. But just taking that, like, here's the goal that we need to deliver, and then the breakdown of how we deliver that goal is actually a breakdown in terms of risk reduction, I think is incredibly clarifying for how to approach executing on that path, so that you don't just, set off without accidentally sort of discover complicated things later on, and then you fail the program. If you think ahead of time on how you incrementally de-risk as you go through, then as you progress, you have more information, you have more confidence, you have more ability to predict when you're going to be able to deliver, and then you can sort of turn it around at the end. So I think clarity of goal, and then a plan, an execution plan oriented around risk reduction, are two very important components for leading programs like this.
So on the clarity of goal part, is there an example that you can think of say what might not be a good goal that is
Yeah,
not clear,
yeah.
and where that might fall apart?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as engineers, we look at our systems and we see all the problems and we see all the things that aren't working as well. And I've seen many cases and myself been in this position. So where, an engineer will come and say, this service, this platform, this component, whatever it is has accumulated a lot of technical debt. Obviously, it's so problematic. Maybe it's even reasoned. Maybe they could say things like it's not performing well, or it's hard to make changes, or and there's a lot of bugs, and there's like a laundry list of things that are wrong. And then and no surprise, because here's a laundry list of things that are bad about this architecture or this implementation. Our goal is to fix it. That's so unspecified. Fix what? Why? Like, what of all the things you listed out is actually important enough to go spin up this effort? It's what is the concrete, like, what's your definition of being done? I think a lot of these like definition of done and these little sort of agile phrases get thrown around a lot, and sometimes they almost lose their meanings because we say them so often. But if you're venturing off on a big effort, what is the concrete way in which you assess that you're done? Re-architecting to make something better is completely amorphous. It is a continuum. There's no such thing as a perfect system. As soon as you ship code, it starts aging. That is a natural part of technology and how it works. And so you have to get a lot more crisp, for example, to say, we are not meeting our uptime guarantees for this component. Our goal is that we can hit those with consistency, right? And so now if someone comes back to you with a proposal to improve the performance, you can say, okay, great idea, but not related to that goal. This is not about performance. This is about availability, right? And so it just lets you focus in the work and make sure that everyone is making decisions that are aligned with that same goal. Because actually, if you want to capture what leadership is, you can't control what every person on the team is doing. It's just that's an impossibility from a scale perspective. And also, if you tried, it would be an incredibly limiting bottleneck on your organization, right? So you're going to have a ton of people that are working on this shared effort, and they're going to be making independent decisions at their scope, whatever that scope is, every single day. And those decisions are either going to align together and be synergistic to deliver an outcome, or they're each going to be pulling in slightly different directions. So if you set off on a make it better project, and you have one person who mainly is looking at performance, and one person who's looking at clarity of code architecture and how readable it is, and one person that's trying to impact availability, and one person that's optimizing cost, who knows what you'll get as an outcome, and who knows how you'll assess whether that's good, and who knows if they'll even realize that they're working on different goals. And so getting very, very concrete, what is the measurable business outcome that you are going to deliver? Why is it critical that you do that? Like, why does it even make sense to spin up this effort? And how are you going to assess that you hit it? Ideally, again, measurable is a definition of a clear goal, as opposed to a directional theme of making something better or improving something, or just something that's a bit more amorphous.